If you're watching this episode on the day it goes out, you'll notice that this week's Jimquisition is here on a Sunday instead of a Monday. We do have an episode coming tomorrow, but tomorrow is Halloween officially, and we've got a very special episode, and it's unlike regular Jimquisitions. And I know some people like their traditional structure, so I worked extra hard to do 2 videos this week, 2 episodes, back to back, well, sort of, one day and then the next day. It's not exactly back to back, but it's 2 episodes, so no one can complain, because you're getting a regular Jimquisition and a special spin-off Jimquisition. How generous am I? What the hell is that noise? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically, what I mean to say is that the Jimquisition is working super duper extra hard for all of you, and the fuck? Piss. Piss.
Oh, my innocent children! Did you really think you'd escape Halloween without a visit from the Scarecrow? I'm afraid your normal internet content viewing has been disrupted. Well, not necessarily disrupted. We do have an episode coming, in fact. Let's just watch it now. I'm just here to show off, really.
Resident Evil 4 is a classic and ridiculously influential game, of that there is no denying. Its success and notability is primarily attributed to the dramatic gameplay shift compared to previous Resident Evil games, something that no doubt earned it a place in history. Going from a tried and tested survival horror structure to a third-person shooter with horror elements was an almost jarring change of pace, but the game was so damn good there were few complaints in the end. The combat was tight, and with Leon Kennedy standing still to aim and shoot, every encounter was tense as players were forced to learn when it was best to fight and when it was best to make some distance. The Ganado, Resident Evil's newest threat, was an intimidating proposition. Violent villagers and cultists with a deadly intelligence, more invasion of the body snatchers than Night of the Living Dead. Then there were the little gameplay touches that just brought the whole thing together nicely. The brilliant laser sight aiming reticle, enemies dropping weapons or stumbling when taking shots to the limbs, hidden treasures and tons of upgradable guns. Resident Evil 4's iconic status, proper iconic, not Ubisoft iconic, is due in huge part to its fantastically realised gameplay. However, while the third-person shooting was thoroughly good, that alone is not why Resident Evil 4 is so good. If it were simply down to the gameplay, Resident Evil 5 would be a lot more memorable than it was, and maybe Resident Evil 6 wouldn't have been quite the pile of shit it was. I mean, it would still have been shit, a mishmash of desperate ideas that should have been called Resident QT Evil. But there's one huge reason why 5 and 6 are not looked back upon with the same nostalgia as 4, at least as far as I'm concerned, and let's face it, as far as I'm concerned is as far as you need to go. What made Resident Evil 4 a cut above the rest lay in its writing just as much as its more tangible elements. What made Resident Evil 4 one of the most memorable games in the series, and arguably one of the most memorable games in Christendom, was the fact that, as thrilling as the fights could be, as spooky as its atmosphere might have been, it also had a sense of fun and humour that later po-faced entries in the series decided to scrap completely.
Where's the satisfying sound of one's impalement?
Won't fall for this old trick.
It was bordering on comedy horror, and that's what made it work so damn well. In this age of stoic, emotionless heroes and tacked-on campaigns where teaching you how to play the multiplayer is more important than creating characters or plot, Resident Evil 4's story still holds up, not just as a tale with a good deal of suspense and drama, but one with a damn funny streak running through it. While 5 and 6 went all dark and wanted to be taken seriously as a serious game for serious gamers looking to have a serious time, Resident Evil 4 carried itself with a playfulness that embraced the ridiculousness of the series without going so far as to become a full-fledged self-parody. Its villains were campy and silly, a nod to the previous B-movie charm of the series' earliest installments, but with a hint of self-awareness. Ramon Salazar obviously stands out, a diminutive 20-year-old Castellan with the face of an old man, prone to childish tantrums and dressed in the sort of anachronistic get-up that treads the line between clownish and creepy.
No more games! Kill him! Kill!
Even the primary villain of the piece, a nasty bit of work called Osmond Sadler, knew how to ham it up, and wasn't shy about trading witty banter with the protagonist. He was a genre-savvy villain who liked to poke fun at movie cliches and the idea of American exceptionalism. Due to appearing only once and being somewhat upstaged by Salazar, Sadler is an oft-overlooked villain in the Resident Evil series. Certainly less memorable than the likes of Albert Wesker or William Birkin, but he's one of my favourite video game villains ever, and aloof and creepy cult leader who nonetheless had a wit and charm to him that few antagonists these days ever get to showcase.
Enjoy the reunion with your old friend?
As a matter of fact, I did.
Wonderful. I wouldn't want my special guests on the island feeling unattended.
Guess I'm supposed to thank you, right?
Ah, I have an idea. Since you're here, why don't I introduce you to it? It should keep you busy.
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
Oh. Enjoy the fun.
Resident Evil 4 wasn't afraid of its own stupidity. Where later Resident Evils would add a thick layer of misery as a shamefaced way of dressing up its silly concepts, RE4 fully accepted it. Getting chased by a gigantic statue of Ramon Salazar, that's okay. A dramatic big damn heroes moment with a guy in a helicopter waging war against soldier Ganados, it's cheesy as fuck, but throw it in. RE4 displayed a confidence in its nonsense that later games, and in fact most AAA games nowadays, are afraid of.
Got something that might interest you.
It's hardly surprising that the Merchant has not appeared in subsequent Resident Evil games, as he alone is the antithesis of what many big-budget video games wanna be. Despite his popularity, the gruff-voiced, comically performed purveyor of wares and weapons that frequently appeared throughout Leon's adventure has been completely snubbed by Capcom, because he just doesn't fit in with their angsty world of political intrigue and soldiers that pose with their guns held up while looking like the last guy you ever want to invite to a bloody party.
Thank you.
What are you buying? What are you selling? Ah, I'll buy it at a high price.
You just don't see that shit anymore. It's nonsensical for a merchant to be hanging around a parasite-infested village selling guns to a man who is A, trying to save the world, and B, could probably just rob him. But rather than waste time explaining that, Capcom leaned into it and gave us this snickering, coat-yanking salesman who'd pop up in the unlikeliest of places. Because why not? This is a ludicrous video game about tentacles and robed dudes with animal skull helmets firing miniguns at you. Why not have a ragged old arms dealer who sounds like a pirate? Because it's not very realistic and it's a bit too campy and oh, fuck off. Now there is one character who really sells what Resident Evil 4 is, and whose changes in later Resident Evil material perfectly typifies what went wrong with the series. That character is the star of the show himself, Leon S. Kennedy. Graduating from rookie cop to special agent tasked with the rescue of the president's daughter, the Leon of RE4 is the world's most cringe-worthy badass. He's highly skilled, he's unflappable in the most deadly situations, and he's so fucking awful, he's brilliant. Nothing in this game escapes some attempted one-liner or wisecrack from Leon.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
From the moment he asks if everybody went to bingo, we know exactly what we're in for with this iteration of the floppy-haired zombie walloper. I have little doubt in my mind Capcom took a ton of inspiration from Metal Gear Solid for Resident Evil 4, to the point where it even has codec conversations.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
and Leon had to have been influenced by Solid Snake. He's Snake if Snake was trying way too hard, and it works perfectly within the context of this game. He's a wannabe ladies man hitting on everyone with all the subtlety of a dick getting nailed to a table, and he's not really very successful about it. His snarky retorts are not exactly clever, and his biggest win in the game is his ability to piss off his enemies just by being really, really, really annoying. It's almost a superpower with this guy.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Say whatever you please. Die, you worm!
In later appearances, all of this was stripped away from Leon, even in what little material kept For's voice actor. If you have the misfortune to watch Resident Evil Degeneration, you'll see an entirely different character. All the humour, the gormless charm, the need to quip about everything, all of it was torn out of him to make way for just another grizzled soldier boy whose sole personality trait was, he has a gun. This would continue in Resident Evil 6, where he again has very little that makes him stand out, very little to distinguish him from Chris, the other soldier boy who has a gun. Nobody went to bingo in Resident Evil 6. There was no bingo for anybody.
Bingo?
Resident Evil 7 is drawing some ire from series fans who are worried about it being just another Amnesia knockoff, with its first-person perspective and promotional footage showing the player having to run from stuff. However, I'm maintaining hope for the game and I'm rather looking forward to it, and it's because of Resident Evil 4 that I'm eager to see this one in action. Like Resident Evil 4, 7 represents another dramatic gameplay shift to the series after a number of mainline examples of established structure. Capcom's promised there will be gun-based combat, but just as RE4 took inspiration from Metal Gear Solid and action games, RE7 looks set to take inspiration from Outlast and first-person horror games. This is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just different. And after Resident Evil 6 was a panicked Frankenstein's monster of derivative material that played to a hodgepodge of popular AAA gaming conventions, 7 looks so much more focused in its inspiration, so much more streamlined in its approach to finding a working formula, and that's encouraging. Most importantly, Resident Evil 7 is already hinting at a return to the camp, to the less serious, to the more humorous. Yes, it's dark and scary and spooky, and people are gonna do all their facecam screaming while playing it in VR, but 7's Texas Chainsaw Massacre illusions are showing off what could well be a truly memorable family of antagonists, who are already showing more personality in one trailer than the series has in the past 2 full games.
Dumb son bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
And that, right there, is what this series needed. Not cover-based shooting, not fuck-awful multiplayer spin-offs, not depressing CGI movies. It needed some fucking fun, some fucking cheese, and... fucking cheese. Wish I hadn't said that. Or do I? Anyway, point is, Resident Evil 4 was funny on top of everything else, and that's why it worked so bloody well. Stranger.
Better try a new trick, cause that one's getting old.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it, children? It was at this point that I would have come up with some game industry terms and then applied some Halloween puns to them. But the best I could come up with was micro-Transylvania actions, and then I just kind of gave up. So really, I've put on all this get-up for no particular reason. I really have put this on for no reason. Well, Halloween! What am I doing here?
And now, the games are about to begin.